Mom, I already updated the property insurance for you, added myself as co-insured, just in case something happens. My daughter's voice came through the phone speaker, sweet as honey, casual as commenting on the weather. I stood at the kitchen window of my new mountain cabin, watching the September sun paint the Blue Ridge Mountains gold, and felt something cold settle in my stomach. What? My hand tightened around the phone. The insurance, Mom. I called the company yesterday. It's all taken care of. You're listed as living there full-time now, so I made sure I'm on the policy too. Just standard stuff for family properties. I hadn't asked her to do that. I hadn't even told her I'd bought this place until 3 days ago. Amanda, how did you— I still have your information from when I helped with Dad's paperwork, she said quickly. Don't worry, I'm just taking care of you. The line went quiet except for the sound of my own breathing. Through the window, a hawk circled over the ridge, riding the thermals free and alone. I'd bought this cabin to feel that way, to finally breathe after 6 months of suffocating grief. To start over in a place that didn't whisper my husband's name from every corner. I should have known my daughter wouldn't let me go that easily. Amanda, I said slowly, I need to call you back. I hung up before she could answer. My reflection stared back at me from the window glass, 58 years old, still strong, still here. David had been gone since March. Heart attack. No warning. One moment planning our retirement, the next moment, gone. The life insurance paid out $250,000. I'd added $150,000 from our savings, 32 years of careful planning, and bought this cabin outright. $385,000. Paid in full. No mortgage. No co-signers. Just my name on the deed. Or so I thought. Let me take you back 6 months to the day my world ended and my daughter's plan began. March 14th, 2023. Tuesday. The kind of day that starts ordinary and ends with your life in pieces. David collapsed in the garage at 7:43 in the morning. I found him at 7:51 when I went to tell him his coffee was getting cold. 8 minutes. That's how long he'd been lying there while I hummed along to the radio, completely unaware that my husband of 32 years was dying 20 feet away. The paramedics were kind. They worked on him for 40 minutes. They used words like massive cardiac event and likely instantaneous and nothing you could have done. But all I heard was the silence after they stopped the compressions. The terrible final silence. Amanda arrived at the hospital 2 hours later. She walked into that sterile waiting room in her yoga pants and designer jacket, took one look at my face and knew. She didn't cry. Not then. She sat down next to me, put her hand over mine and said, "What do we do now, Mom?" Not "I'm so sorry." Not "Are you okay?" What do we do now? At the time, I thought she meant about the funeral, about calling relatives, about all the terrible practical things that come after someone dies. I didn't realize she was asking about the money. The first few weeks were a blur of casseroles and condolence cards. Amanda came over every day. She helped me sort through David's office, organize his files, contact the insurance company. She was so helpful, so efficient, so concerned. "Mom, you shouldn't have to deal with this alone," she'd say, taking another folder from my hands. "Let me handle the paperwork. You just rest." I was grateful. I was drowning and she threw me a rope. I didn't notice she was pulling me toward deeper water. David had been a civil engineer for 35 years. Good salary, excellent benefits, and a life insurance policy through his company that neither of us thought much about. It was just there like the 401k and the health insurance, one of those adult things you set up and forget about. Until suddenly it's worth $250,000. The check arrived in May. $250,000. Enough money to change a life. Enough money to start over. Enough money apparently to make my daughter look at me differently. "What are you going to do with it?" Amanda asked the day the money hit my account. We were sitting in my kitchen, the kitchen where I'd made her school lunches for 12 years, where she'd done homework at this same table where David had proposed to me 33 years ago on a random Tuesday because he couldn't wait another day. "I don't know yet," I said. "Maybe travel. Maybe finally take that art class I've been talking about. Maybe just breathe for a while." She frowned. "Mom, you should invest it. Put it somewhere safe. Make sure it's there for, later. Later, when I was old. When I needed care, when I wasn't capable of making my own decisions. I was 58, not 80, still working part-time as a medical transcriptionist, still hiking, still driving, still living. But in Amanda's eyes, I saw it, that subtle shift. I wasn't her mother anymore. I was an asset to be managed, a liability to be planned for. I'm thinking about buying a cabin, I said. The words surprised me as much as they surprised her. But once I said them, I knew they were true. Amanda's coffee cup paused halfway to her lips. A cabin. In the mountains. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere new. Mom, that's not a good investment. Real estate in remote areas doesn't appreciate like, I'm not trying to make money, Amanda. I'm trying to make a life. She set her cup down carefully. With Dad's money. Dad's money. Not the life insurance left to me his widow. Not our combined savings from 3 decades of marriage. Not the result of my own sacrifices and choices. Dad's money. I should have paid attention to that moment, to the way she said it, to the cold calculation behind her concern. But I was still too buried in grief to see what was growing in its shadow. I found the cabin in late August. A friend from my grief counseling group mentioned that her cousin was selling a property in Blowing Rock, North Carolina. 3 bedrooms wraparound porch view of the Blue Ridge Mountains that made my chest ache in the best way. I drove up on a Saturday expecting to just look. But the moment I stepped onto that porch, I knew. The way you know when something broken inside you suddenly clicks back into place. The air smelled like pine and possibility. The silence wasn't lonely, it was peaceful. The mountains didn't care that I was a widow. They didn't pity me or manage me or make decisions for me. They just stood there, ancient and steady, waiting. I made an offer that afternoon. $385,000. Cash. No inspection contingency, no mortgage approval needed. The seller, eager to move to Arizona before winter, accepted immediately. I didn't tell Amanda until the day before closing. You did what? Her voice came through the phone so loud I had to pull it away from my ear. I bought a cabin in North Carolina. I'm closing tomorrow. Mom, the way she said it like I was a child who'd done something dangerously stupid. You can't just... How much? $385,000. Silence. Then, that's almost all of it. The insurance, the savings. Mom, that's everything Dad worked for. There it was again. Dad's money. Dad's work. Dad's legacy. Nothing about my 40-hour work weeks while putting David through graduate school. Nothing about the promotion I turned down so we could move for his job. Nothing about the inheritance from my own mother that went into our down payment on the house we'd just sold. Nothing about me at all. Amanda, the money is mine. The decision is mine. But Mom, what if you need it later? What if something happens? What about you? I said it quietly, but she heard it. Another silence, longer this time. I didn't say that, she said finally. You didn't have to. We hung up with that cold politeness families use when they're too angry to fight, but too civilized to scream. I told myself she'd come around, that she was just worried, that this was grief, talking not greed. I told myself a lot of things that turned out to be lies. I closed on September 15th, Friday afternoon at the lawyer's office in Boone. Carol Henderson, the Blue Ridge Estates community manager, met me there with a welcome packet and a smile that actually reached her eyes. You're going to love it here, she said. It's quiet, but there's a good community if you want it, and plenty of privacy if you don't. She went over the rules, guest policies, property maintenance, emergency contacts. I nodded along, only half listening. I was too busy looking at the deed with my name on it. Donna Marie Mitchell, sole owner, no joint ownership, no beneficiaries listed, no one's permission needed, just mine. I moved in that Sunday with 2 suitcases and a box of kitchen essentials. The furniture would come later, delivered from the storage unit where I'd put everything from the old house. But that first night I didn't need furniture. I sat on the porch with a sleeping bag and a thermos of tea, watching the stars come out over the mountains, and I felt something I hadn't felt since David died. Peace. It lasted exactly 6 days. Friday, September 22nd, 6:00 p.m. I'd spent the day unpacking boxes in the kitchen, hanging curtains, making this house feel like mine. The furniture had arrived that morning, not everything, just the essentials. A bed, a couch, a kitchen table where I could sit and watch the mountains while I drank my coffee. I was thinking about dinner when my phone rang. Amanda. I almost didn't answer. We hadn't spoken since that tense conversation about the cabin, but she was still my daughter. Still the baby I'd rocked through colic and held through nightmares and cheered for at every dance recital. So I answered. Hi, sweetheart. Mom, hi. Her voice was warm, sweet even. I've been thinking about what you said, about needing space and a new start. And you're right, I was being overprotective. I felt my shoulders relax slightly. It's okay. I know you were just— I want to see it, she interrupted. The cabin. I want to come visit. See what's making you so happy. Oh, I smiled, looking around at the half-unpacked boxes, the curtains hanging slightly crooked. That would be wonderful. When were you thinking tomorrow? Tomorrow, Saturday. Less than 24 hours. Oh, I'm still unpacking, honey. Maybe next weekend would be— I'm already packed, she said. And I told Kyle, we're bringing some friends too, content creators from my blog network. We want to do a feature on healing after loss. You know how you're rebuilding your life after Dad. It'll be really positive, really uplifting. My smile froze. Content creators. Yeah, just like 8 or 9 people. We'll film some footage of the cabin, do some interviews, maybe cook a meal together. You won't have to do anything, Mom. We'll handle it all. 8 or 9 people. Filming. In my home. In the space I'd bought specifically to be alone, to heal, to breathe. Amanda, I don't think— It's just for the weekend. We'll be out of your hair by Sunday night. And honestly, Mom, it would really help Kyle and me right now. His blog has been struggling, and this kind of authentic family content really resonates with audiences. It could really boost our engagement. There it was. The real reason. Not to see me, not to check on my well-being. To create content. To use my grief, my new beginning, my private healing as material for clicks and likes. How many people exactly? I asked carefully. 10, maybe, including Kyle and me. Is that okay? 10 strangers in my 3-bedroom cabin. Cameras, lights, my life turned into performance. Amanda, this cabin is in a private community. There are rules about overnight guests. I don't think I can— Oh, we won't stay overnight, she said quickly. Too quickly. We'll get a hotel nearby. We just need to film during the day. Is that better? It wasn't better. It wasn't what I wanted at all. But she was my daughter, and some old deep part of me still couldn't say no to her. What time tomorrow? I heard myself ask. We'll be there by 2. Oh, and Mom, she paused. I already updated the property insurance for you. Added myself as co-insured, just in case something happens. And there it was. The thing that made my stomach drop. The thing that turned this from pushy to something else entirely. You what? The insurance. I called the company yesterday. You're listed as living there full-time now, so I made sure I'm protected too. It's standard for family properties. Family properties. Not my property. Not your home. Family properties. Amanda, how did you access my insurance information? I still have your details from when I helped with Dad's paperwork. Social security number, policy numbers, all that. Don't worry, Mom. I'm just taking care of you, like you always took care of me. My hands were shaking now. I need to call you back. Mom, wait. I hung up. For a long moment, I just stood there, phone in hand, staring out at the mountains. They looked different now. Not peaceful, just distant, indifferent to the small human dramas playing out in the valley below. I called my insurance company. Got an automated system. If this is an emergency, press 1. For policy information, press 2. I pressed 2. Got another menu. For recent changes to your policy, press 3. I pressed 3. I'm sorry, our offices are now closed. Our business hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern. Monday. I'd have to wait until Monday. I pulled up my laptop instead and searched. Can someone add themselves to property insurance without owner permission? The first result was from a legal advice forum. No. Any changes to property insurance require the signature of the primary policyholder. If someone has made changes without your authorization, this may constitute insurance fraud. Insurance fraud. My daughter. I thought about calling her back, demanding an explanation, but some instinct told me to wait, to think, to understand what was really happening before I acted. I opened my email and searched for anything from my insurance company. Nothing in the past week, nothing about policy changes, nothing requiring my signature or confirmation, which meant either Amanda was lying about updating the insurance or she'd done it without any verification from me at all. Neither option was good. I called Carol Henderson, the community manager. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm and professional. Carol Henderson, Blue Ridge Estates. Carol, this is Donna Mitchell. I closed on 127 Ridgeline Drive last week. Donna, of course. How's the cabin treating you? It's beautiful, I said. But I have a situation I need advice on. I explained it as simply as I could. My daughter called, wants to bring 10 people tomorrow, filming equipment. I said I wasn't sure, but she insisted. And then the part that made my voice shake slightly, she mentioned adding herself to my property insurance without my permission. Carol was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her tone had sharpened with professional concern. 10 people. Did she say what they'd be filming? Content for her lifestyle blog, about grief and new beginnings, using my cabin as the backdrop. Is she registered as a resident or co-owner? No, I'm the sole owner. I paid cash at closing. Then let me be very clear, Donna. Carol's words came quickly now, precise and firm. Blue Ridge Estates has a zero-tolerance policy for unregistered guests and unauthorized commercial filming. We had an incident last month with a content creator who rented a property and used it as a set without the owner's permission. The community board shut it down within hours. My chest loosened slightly. So if she shows up with 10 people and filming equipment, maximum occupancy for overnight guests is 6 people, and all visitors must be registered at least 48 hours in advance. If your daughter arrives tomorrow with 10 people cameras and you haven't authorized them, they're in violation of community policies. I can have Officer Davis, he does our Saturday patrols, make sure they understand that. Officer Davis, a sheriff's deputy, at my daughter's arrival. It seemed extreme. But then again, so was adding yourself to someone's insurance without permission. So was showing up with a film crew to someone's private sanctuary. I don't want to cause trouble, I started. Donnie, Carol interrupted gently. Protecting your boundaries isn't causing trouble. It's preventing it. Do you want me to make sure Officer Davis knows to check on your property tomorrow afternoon? I thought about Amanda's voice on the phone, the casual assumption that I'd say yes. The way she'd already told everyone they were coming, already made plans, already added herself to my insurance, all without asking if any of it was okay. The way she'd turned my grief into content and my new beginning into a photo opportunity. Yes, I said. Please. Done. And Donna, one more thing. Change your door codes tonight. If your daughter has ever had access to your keys or knows your usual combinations, change them, just to be safe. After we hung up, I walked through the cabin room by room. The front door had a digital keypad. I'd been using the default code the previous owner had given me. I reprogrammed it with a new 6-digit code, David's birthday backward. Something Amanda wouldn't guess. The back door had a deadbolt. I turned it twice, testing. Then I pulled out my closing documents and spread them across the kitchen table. Deed, title insurance, property survey, all with my name and my name alone. Donna Marie Mitchell, sole owner, purchased for $385,000, paid in full. I took photos of every page with my phone, just in case. It was almost midnight when I finally went to bed. I lay in the darkness, listening to the wind move through the pine trees outside, and tried to remember when my daughter had stopped being my daughter and started being someone I needed to protect myself from. The answer came quiet and sad. Maybe she'd always been this person, and I'd just been too busy being her mother to notice. Saturday, September 23rd, 2:17 p.m. I heard them before I saw them. 3 vehicles grinding up the gravel drive engines, cutting off one by one. I stood at the kitchen window and watched. Amanda stepped out of the passenger seat of the first SUV, blonde hair, perfect, wearing expensive athleisure that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Kyle was driving tall, perpetually pleasant-looking, the kind of man who'd never met a conflict he couldn't smile his way out of. Behind them, the other 2 vehicles disgorged 9 more people, young mid-20s mostly. They carried equipment cameras, tripods, ring lights, microphone on a boom pole. One girl wore a cropped denim jacket despite the September heat. A guy in a backwards cap immediately started filming the cabin exterior with his phone. This wasn't a family visit. This was a production. I texted Carol, "They're here. 10 people, cameras, trying my door." Her response came within seconds. "Officer Davis is 2 minutes out. Don't open the door. Let the system work." I watched as Kyle walked up to the front porch and tried the handle. It didn't turn. He knocked 3 hard raps that echoed through the cabin. I didn't move. "Donna," he called, "we know you're in there. Amanda said you were expecting us." Expecting them. As if I'd invited this circus. I saw him pull out his phone, type something. A moment later, Amanda's phone buzzed. They exchanged a look. Then Kyle walked around the side of the cabin, peering into windows, checking the back door. One of the young women, the one in the denim jacket, leaned against the SUV and scrolled through her phone. "How long are we supposed to wait?" "She'll come out," Amanda said coolly, not looking up from her own phone. "She always does. She always does." The casual certainty in her voice that I would fold, that I would open the door, that I would let them in, because I always had before. Because I was her mother. Because saying no to your daughter feels like failing at the one job you were supposed to do right. But then I heard another engine. Slower this time. Deliberate. A marked patrol car rolled up the driveway, Sheriff's Department logo visible on the door. Officer Davis stepped out, mid-40s, solid build, the kind of calm authority that comes from years of dealing with difficult people. "Afternoon," he said, walking toward the group. "I'm Officer Davis, Watauga County Sheriff's Department. I patrol Blue Ridge Estates on Saturdays. Is there a problem here?" Kyle straightened immediately. His whole demeanor shifted, less pushy, more professional. "No problem, officer. This is a family matter. My wife's mother owns this property and we're here to visit. We've been trying to reach her, but she's not answering the door." Davis glanced at the cameras, the lights, the microphones. "That's a lot of equipment for a family visit." "We're documenting a reunion," Kyle said smoothly. "Lifestyle content. We do this professionally. Her mother just bought this cabin and we wanted to surprise her." Davis looked at Amanda. "And you're the daughter?" "Yes." Amanda's voice was honey-sweet, practiced. "My mother just lost my father 6 months ago. We're worried about her up here alone. We just want to make sure she's okay." She was good, I'd give her that. The concern in her voice sounded genuine. The slight tremor when she mentioned David's death, perfect. Davis walked up to the porch and knocked himself. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is Officer Davis. Are you all right in there?" I took a breath and opened the door. Davis nodded politely. "Ma'am, are you expecting these folks?" Behind him, I could see Amanda's face, surprise, flickering across it before she smoothed it into a smile. "No," I said quietly. "I'm not." Trevor stepped forward, his hand rising like he was about to place it on my shoulder. I took a step back. "Donna, come on," he said, voice warm, reasonable. "We talked about this yesterday. We're family." I looked at him, this man who'd married my daughter 2 years ago in a ceremony I'd helped pay for. I'd given them $5,000 toward the reception. Amanda said it was a loan. I never saw a penny back. "We didn't talk about anything," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Amanda called and told me she was coming. I didn't agree to it." Amanda's expression shifted, the sweetness draining away like water through sand. "Mom, don't be ridiculous. You said okay?" "I said okay, we'll talk about it. Not okay, bring 10 people with cameras." Officer Davis pulled a small notebook from his pocket. "Ma'am, did you authorize filming on this property?" "No." "And these people?" He gestured to the group standing awkwardly by the vehicles. "Did you invite them?" "No." Davis turned back to Kyle. "Sir, the property owner has made it clear you're not welcome. You need to leave." Kyle's jaw tightened. He glanced at Amanda, then reached into his jacket pocket. "Actually, officer, I think you'll find we have legal standing to be here." He didn't pull anything out yet. Just stood there, hand resting on whatever was folded inside his jacket, eyes locked on Davis. Davis's expression didn't change. "Is that so?" The air on the porch felt heavy, thick. Amanda stood behind Kyle, her face carefully blank, but I could see the pulse jumping in her throat. "Yes," Kyle said slowly. "We do." Davis crossed his arms. "Then I'd like to see it." Kyle pulled out a folded document and handed it to Officer Davis. The paper looked official, heavy stock embossed header, multiple pages stapled together. "This is a quitclaim deed," Kyle said, his voice steady, practiced. "It transfers ownership of this property to the Mitchell Family Living Trust. Donna's signature is on it, witnessed and notarized last Friday. Amanda and I are the designated trustees. We have every right to be here." My stomach dropped. Davis took the document and examined it carefully, turning pages, holding it up to the light. I could see the embossed seal, the official-looking letterhead. And there on the 3rd page, a signature that read Donna Mitchell. It looked like my handwriting. The slope of the D, the loop in the M. Almost perfect. Almost. "I never signed that," I said. My voice came out thin, shaky. "That's not mine." Kyle's eyebrows rose in what might have been genuine surprise or excellent acting. "Donna, you signed it at the bank on Thursday, when you went to set up the utilities. Don't you remember Thursday? 3 days ago. I had gone to the bank, but only to deposit a check. I'd been in and out in 15 minutes. No documents, no notary, no deed. Davis was still studying the paper, his brow furrowed. He pulled a small flashlight from his belt and held it close to the notary seal, examining it from different angles. "This is odd," he said slowly. "This notary stamp, it's printed not embossed. You can see the dot pattern if you look closely." He tilted the paper under the light. "No texture, no impression, and the ink doesn't have the right sheen for a fresh seal." He looked up at Kyle. "I just attended a fraud prevention training last week. The notary listed here, Rebecca Hartman, reported her documents and seal stolen back in July. This notary ID was suspended in the state system 2 months ago." Kyle's face went pale. "Officer, there must be some mistake. We used a legitimate notary service. If there's an issue with the credentials, that's not our fault." "The signature is forged," I interrupted. My hands were shaking, but my voice was getting stronger. "I never signed anything. I never agreed to put this property in a trust. That's not my signature." Davis keyed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Davis. I need backup at 127 Ridgeline Drive. Possible fraud and forgery situation." "You're making a huge mistake," Amanda said. Her voice had lost all its sweetness, now turned sharp and cold. "Mom, tell him. Tell him you signed it. You're just confused. The grief is making you forget." "I'm not confused, Amanda." I stepped fully onto the porch, standing next to Officer Davis. "I know exactly what's happening here." Within minutes, 2 more patrol cars arrived. Officers Hayes and Brooks separated Kyle and Amanda from the group of content creators who were now standing by their vehicles, looking thoroughly uncomfortable and confused. Officer Hayes approached the girl in the denim jacket. "Did any of you know what was going on here?" She shook her head quickly. "No. Kyle said we were coming up for a weekend shoot. Family reunion content. He paid me $500 to be here. I thought it was legit." Hayes raised an eyebrow. "He paid you?" "Yeah, all of us." She gestured to the others. "We didn't know there was this." Her hand waved vaguely at the patrol cars, the tension, the legal documents. Another young man, backwards cap, expensive camera, spoke up. "I got 300. Kyle said it was a day rate for filming. He showed us Amanda's blog, said she had like 50,000 followers. We thought it was a real production." Davis turned back to Kyle and Amanda. "You paid people to come here, to my client's private property, for a commercial filming operation." "It's not commercial," Amanda said quickly. "It's personal, family content." "You just admitted to paying actors," Davis said flatly. "That's commercial." He looked at me. "Mrs. Mitchell, you have the right to pursue charges for fraud, forgery, and trespassing through the district attorney's office. But right now, these people need to leave your property immediately." Kyle opened his mouth, closed it. His hands were shaking now, fingers curling and uncurling at his sides like he was trying to work feeling back into them. Amanda stared at him, her face hard. Then she turned and looked at me. Her eyes were empty of everything except calculation. "Let's go," she said to Kyle. The group packed up quickly. Cameras, tripods, lights, all shoved into vehicles with none of the careful organization they'd arrived with. The content creators were muttering to each other, pulling out phones, probably already texting about the drama. Within 10 minutes, the 3 vehicles were pulling back down the driveway, gravel crunching under their tires. As they left, Amanda leaned out the passenger window and locked eyes with me one last time. No words, just that cold measuring look. Kyle was on his phone before they even reached the main road, his knuckles white around the device. Officer Davis stood beside me on the porch, watching them disappear down the mountain road. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said quietly, "you need to contact an attorney today. This isn't just trespassing. This is organized fraud. If they were willing to forge a deed, there's likely more you don't know about yet." I nodded, but I couldn't speak. My throat was too tight. Davis handed me his card. "Call me if they come back. Call me if anything else seems off. And lock your doors." After the patrol cars left, I stood in the middle of my living room, letting the quiet settle around me. The cabin felt different now. Not peaceful, just hollow. I looked at the forged deed Davis had given me evidence he'd said. "Keep it safe. Donna Mitchell." The signature stared back at me, so close to mine. Close enough that if I hadn't been looking for it, I might have believed it was real. How long had they been planning this Monday morning? I was the first person in line when the Watauga County Recorder's office opened at 8. Mrs. Patterson, the clerk behind the counter, greeted me with a polite smile. "How can I help you?" "I need to search property records for 127 Ridgeline Drive," I said, sliding my driver's license across the counter. She typed into her computer. Her expression shifted. "There's a quit claim deed filed Friday at 3:47 p.m. My heart stopped. Last Friday, September 22nd. "Yes, ma'am. Filed electronically, processed overnight, posted to the public record system Saturday morning." She turned the monitor toward me. The document on the screen was the same one Kyle had shown Officer Davis, claiming to transfer ownership from Donna Mitchell to the Mitchell Family Living Trust. The signature at the bottom that wasn't quite mine, but almost. "What time was it filed?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. 3:47 p.m. 3:47 p.m., Friday afternoon. Amanda had called me at 6 p.m., 2 hours and 13 minutes later. They had filed the deed, tried to steal my home before they even told me they were coming. Mrs. Patterson was watching me carefully. "Ma'am, is everything all right?" "I never signed this," I said. "That's a forgery." Her face went serious. She pulled up the filing receipt and printed it. Submitter name Kyle Barrett. Submitter email kyle.businesssolutions@digitalconsult.net. Date and time filed September 22nd, 2023, 3:47 p.m. I stared at the timestamp. They hadn't just planned this on a whim. They'd coordinated it, filed the paperwork. Then Amanda had called me with her sweet voice and her talk of healing and family, all while the forged document was already working its way through the county's system. "How did they manage to file this so quickly?" I asked. "Don't you verify signatures?" Mrs. Patterson sighed. "The e-filing system is designed for efficiency. Mr. Barrett used login credentials from a registered business account. The system checks the parcel number and confirms the presence of a notary seal, but it doesn't immediately verify the notary's current status or validate signatures. That happens during the recording process, which can take 24 to 48 hours. She shook her head. "If someone has legitimate-looking credentials and the correct parcel number, the system accepts the filing automatically. We've had issues with this before. I'm so sorry. Can you fix it? I'm placing a fraud alert on the property right now. No further transactions can be processed without in-person identity verification." She typed rapidly. "But Mrs. Mitchell, you need to contact an attorney immediately and file a police report. Can you print me copies of everything?" She printed the forged deed, the filing receipt, the property record showing me as the legitimate sole owner, and the parcel map confirming 127 Ridgeline Drive was indeed parcel 3847.09.1156, the correct number they'd used to slip through the system. I took the stack of papers and walked to my car on shaky legs. Sat in the parking lot, engine off, staring at the timestamp. 3:47 p.m., 2 hours before the phone call. They'd tried to steal my home, and then Amanda had called me all sweetness and concern, asking to visit, talking about healing and family. And I'd almost said yes. I called Angela Reeves from the parking lot. Carol Henderson had recommended her, the best real estate attorney in Boone, doesn't mess around. She answered on the second ring. "Angela Reeves." "Ms. Reeves, my name is Donna Mitchell. Someone forged my signature and filed a deed to transfer my property into a fake trust." There was a pause. Professional assessment happening in that silence. "When did this happen?" "Friday at 3:47 p.m. I just found out this morning." "Have you filed a police report?" "Not yet." "Do that immediately. Then come to my office. Can you be here by noon?" "Yes." "Bring every document you have. Closing papers, original deed, the fraudulent filing, everything." Angela's voice was firm, businesslike, but not unkind. "Mrs. Mitchell, I need you to understand this is serious. Forgery, fraud, possibly elder abuse. We're filing an emergency motion for a temporary restraining order and a quiet title action, but this is going to escalate quickly." I looked down at the papers in my lap, at the forged signature, at the timestamp that proved premeditation. "I understand," I said. "Good. See you at noon." By 1:00 p.m., I was sitting in Angela Reeves's office in downtown Boone. Angela was in her early 50s with sharp eyes and the kind of no-nonsense demeanor that probably terrified opposing counsel. She reviewed the documents I'd brought, my closing papers, the forged deed, the filing receipt, and her expression darkened. "This is textbook fraud," she said. Forged signature fake notary stamp electronic filing to avoid in-person scrutiny. They were betting on the system's automation to get this recorded before you found out. Can we stop it? Absolutely. We're filing an emergency motion for a temporary restraining order today. That will prevent them from contacting you or coming near the property. The quiet title action will ask the court to declare that you are the sole legal owner and that the fraudulent deed is void. She paused, studying me. But Donna, fraud like this doesn't happen in a vacuum. There's usually more. I'm going to have my investigator run a background check on Kyle Barrett, and I'm contacting your title insurance company. If there's anything else with your name on it, we need to find it now. What else could there be? Angela's eyes were kind but serious. I don't know yet, but people who forge deeds usually have other plans in motion. By 2:00 p.m., Angela's investigator, a woman named Sarah Kim, who specialized in digital forensics, had preliminary results. Angela read from the report, Kyle Barrett, 2 prior marriages, both ending in divorce within 3 years. Financial disputes in both cases. One ex-wife alleged unauthorized use of her credit cards. She continued, business address, UPS store mailbox number 247, Charlotte. LLC registration, Barrett Business Solutions, December 2022. 0 revenue. No employees, no contracts listed. Current debt, $43,000 across 7 credit cards. 2 months behind on car lease payments. Eviction notice filed for unpaid rent at Charlotte apartment. Angela looked up from the report. He's not just struggling, Donna. He's drowning. And desperate people do desperate things. She picked up her phone. I'm calling the title insurance investigator now. They need to pull metadata from the e-filing vendor and cross-check for any other documents or applications with your name. She dialed. I sat there, hands folded in my lap, listening to one side of the conversation. This is Angela Reeves. I'm representing Donna Mitchell. Yes, 127 Ridgeline Drive, Blowing Rock. We've discovered a fraudulent quit-claim deed filed September 22nd. I need you to pull all metadata and check for any other filings or insurance applications in Mrs. Mitchell's name. She listened. Her pen moved across a legal pad. Then her face changed. When, she said sharply. She scribbled faster. And the beneficiary. A pause. Understood. I need a full copy of that policy, the application, and all payment records. Today. She hung up and looked at me. Her expression was grim. Donna, she said slowly. There's something else. Something worse. My stomach dropped. What? The investigator flagged another document filed in your name. Angela stood and walked to her window, looking out at the Boone streets below. It's a life insurance policy. The words didn't make sense at first. A what? She turned back to me. Life insurance. On your life. Application dated June 15th, 2023. Coverage amount $500,000. Insured Donna Marie Mitchell. Beneficiary Amanda Mitchell Barrett. The room tilted. I gripped the arms of my chair. I never signed that, I whispered. I know, Angela said. Look at the application. She pulled up the document on her laptop and turned it toward me. There at the bottom was a signature. Donna Mitchell. The same almost but not quite handwriting as the deed. They forged it, Angela said. Just like the deed. But this is worse, Donna. Much worse. She pulled up another page. The application includes your medical information, your primary care doctor, a surgery you had in 2019, your current medications, details only someone very close to you would know. Amanda is my emergency contact, I said quietly. She has access to my medical records. Exactly. Angela's jaw was tight. And here's the worst part. The insurance company's notes show a verification call was made to your cell phone on June 18th at 2:15 p.m. Someone answered and confirmed the application details, posing as you. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands, checked my calendar. June 18th, 2:15 p.m. I'd been at my grief counseling session that afternoon. The session ran from 2 to 3 p.m. I always turned my phone to silent during therapy. I wasn't available to answer, I said. I was in therapy. Someone else. Amanda must have. Call forwarding, Angela said. She could have set it up temporarily on your phone, answered the verification call herself, pretending to be you, then turned it off before you noticed. I felt sick. Angela continued, her voice careful. The policy is what's called a simplified issue policy, designed for applicants under 65 who have recent medical records on file. No medical exam required if the coverage is under a certain threshold. Amanda knew exactly what she was doing. She leaned forward. Donna, this policy has been active since June. Premiums have been paid every month. $485 automatically deducted from a joint bank account Amanda shares with Kyle. They've paid nearly $2,500 so far. Why? I asked. Why would they do this? Angela's voice was gentle but firm. Because if something happened to you, Amanda would receive $500,000, tax-free. The words hung in the air between us. They tried to take my home, I said slowly, working through it. And if that didn't work? They had a backup plan, Angela finished. Angela picked up her phone immediately. I'm calling the insurance company right now to report fraud, and I'm adding this to our emergency motion. The court needs to see the full picture, the deed, the policy, the timeline. While she talked to the insurance company, I sat there staring at the policy printout. Policy date June 15th, 2023. 3 months before I bought the cabin. 3 months before Amanda called demanding to bring 10 people to my home. 3 months before they showed up with cameras and a forged deed. They'd been planning this since summer, since June, barely 3 months after David died. While I was still crying myself to sleep every night, still finding his reading glasses in random places and breaking down in grocery stores because I'd accidentally bought his favorite cereal, Amanda had been planning this. My daughter. Angela hung up. The insurance company is opening a fraud investigation immediately. They're freezing the policy and flagging Amanda's account. She looked at me. I'm filing for an emergency TRO hearing. We're going to court and we're going to stop this. When 10. As soon as I can get it on the docket, probably within 48 hours. My phone buzzed. Text message. Amanda's name. I showed it to Angela. She nodded. Read it, but don't respond. The message said, Mom, we need to talk. Please. Then another, you're making a huge mistake. You don't understand what you're doing to this family. Then Dad would be so disappointed in you. My hand tightened around the phone. Dad would be so disappointed in you. David had been gone 6 months and she was using him as a weapon, as if she had any idea what he would have thought. As if he would have wanted this, his daughter showing up with cameras and fake documents trying to take the one thing I'd built with the money he'd left to me. Another message. We've already taken steps to protect what's rightfully ours. This isn't over. I looked at Angela. She says they've already taken steps. Past tense. Angela's eyes narrowed. Forward that to me. Screenshot everything. I did. Angela studied the messages. Already taken steps. Not we're going to, or we might. Already. She looked up at me. What else have they done, Donna? What are we missing? I thought about the timeline. The insurance policy in June. The deed filed in September. 2 major fraudulent documents, both carefully timed, both requiring planning and coordination. I don't know, I said. But I want to find out. Angela called Sarah Kim her investigator. Sarah, I need you to dig deeper. Check for any other documents filed in Donna Mitchell's name. Check credit reports. Check for loan applications. Check everything. She hung up and looked at me. Go home. Lock your doors. Don't answer calls from Amanda or Kyle. Screenshot any messages they send, but don't respond. If they show up at your property, call 911 first, then me. What about the restraining order? I'm filing it this afternoon. The hearing will be later this week. Until then, you keep your head down and let me do my job. I stood to leave, then paused. Angela, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think they would have actually... I couldn't finish the sentence. Angela's face softened. I think they were desperate and greedy and not thinking clearly about consequences. Whether they would have acted on it, I don't know. But you don't take out a life insurance policy on someone for no reason. That night I sat on the porch of my cabin, wrapped in a blanket, watching the stars come out over the mountains. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But some stubborn part of me needed to hear what Amanda had to say. Hello. Mom. Amanda's voice. Not sweet anymore. Tired. Maybe even scared. Please, we need to talk. Angela said I shouldn't speak to you. I know, but Mom, please, just listen for a minute. Against my better judgment, I stayed on the line. Kyle is in trouble, Amanda said. Bad trouble. He lost his job in March. Same week Dad died. They were investigating him for... It doesn't matter. He's $43,000 in debt. We're about to lose our apartment. I didn't know what else to do. So you decided to steal from me. Not steal, just borrow. The cabin was worth so much and you were living there alone. We thought if we could refinance it, take out a loan against the equity, we could pay off Kyle's debts and get back on our feet. Then we'd pay you back. Eventually. By forging my signature, silence. And the insurance policy, Amanda. How was that borrowing? That was Kyle's idea, she said quickly. Too quickly. He said it was just protection, in case anything happened. I didn't really think you didn't think that I'd find out, or that I'd die. Mom, don't say it like that. It wasn't. We weren't what Amanda planning for me to have an accident? Is that what October 15th was for? Silence. Long and heavy. How did you? She started. We found your files, I said. The timeline, the spreadsheet. All of it. I heard her breathing on the other end of the line. When she spoke again, her voice was different. Colder. You had no right to go through our private documents. You had no right to forge my signature. Twice. That money should have been mine, she said. Dad worked for 35 years. He built that wealth while I was growing up without him. Birthday parties he missed. School events he couldn't attend because he was working. And when he died, he left it all to you. Someone who never worked a real job. Who spent his money on book clubs and yoga classes and now a cabin you don't even need. There it was. The real Amanda. Not desperate. Not scared. Entitled. Your father left me that money because I was his wife, I said quietly. Because I put him through graduate school. Because I turned down a promotion so we could move for his job. Because I took care of him through every late night and stressful project and career setback. Because that's what marriage is. You didn't earn it, you just existed next to him. The words hit like a slap. I think we're done talking, I said. Mom, wait. I hung up. Tuesday morning, Sarah Kim called. Mrs. Mitchell, I found something. Can you come to Angela's office this afternoon? By 2 p.m., I was back in Angela's conference room. Sarah had her laptop open, multiple windows displayed on the screen. I subpoenaed Amanda's cloud storage accounts, Sarah said. Found a password-protected folder called Project Cabin. She clicked it open. Inside were dozens of files. Photos of your cabin from the original listing, Sarah said, clicking through them. These were taken before you even bought it. She'd been researching the property. She opened a spreadsheet. Refinance calculator. They'd already run the numbers. Cabin value $385,000. Loan amount $200,000. Monthly payment $1,847. There's a note here. Enough to cover Kay's debts plus 6 months' rent. She opened another document. Timeline.docx. Let me read this to you. She cleared her throat. June 15th. Submit insurance app. June 20th. Verification call D will be at therapy. September 15th. D closes on cabin. September 22nd. File deed transfer. September 23rd. Move and establish residency. October 1st. Refinance application. Sarah paused. And then there's this line. It was deleted, but I recovered it from the revision history. October 15th. She turned the laptop toward me. The deleted text read, If D contests insurance policy active, payout timeline 30 to 60 days. Angela's voice was tight. They had a contingency plan if the deed transfer didn't work if you fought back. They were going to kill me, I finished. We don't have direct evidence of intent to harm, Angela said carefully. But the pattern is clear. Financial desperation. Fraudulent documents. Life insurance. A timeline that accounts for your potential death. She leaned forward. Donna, we're not just dealing with fraud anymore. This is conspiracy. Possibly attempted murder, though that would be harder to prove. But the DA needs to see this. Sarah opened another file. There's more. Email correspondence between Kyle and Amanda. Let me read you one from July 12th. She pulled it up. Kyle writes, The cabin is the answer. Once it's in the trust, we can refinance against it. Take out $200K. Pay off my debts. Start over. Amanda replies, I'll handle Mom. You handle the paperwork. Another email. August 3rd. Kyle. What if she finds out? Amanda, she won't. She's too buried in grief to pay attention. And even if she does, what's she going to do? She's alone. No one believes old women when they cry fraud. No one believes old women when they cry fraud. I was 58. Not old, not senile, not invisible. But to my daughter, I was all three. Sarah clicked to another folder. Bank statements. Amanda and Kyle have a joint account. Look at the monthly withdrawals. $485 on the 15th of every month since June. The insurance premiums. She pulled up another statement. But look at the deposits. Amanda's blog income is about $4,000 a month, but Kyle's been withdrawing almost all of it. Cash withdrawals sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. Small amounts, 40 here, 80 there. Classic signs of someone hiding spending from their spouse. Gambling, Angela asked, or drugs, or just general desperation spending. But whatever it is, they're hemorrhaging money. Sarah opened one more document. And then there's this. A Google search history from Amanda's laptop, dated September 10th, 5 days before you closed on the cabin. She turned the screen. The searches read, how long does it take to contest a deed transfer? Can children sue for inheritance? What happens if parent dies without will? Accidental death versus natural causes insurance payout. How to make carbon monoxide look like accident. The room went silent. Angela's face had gone pale. That last one. When was that searched? Sarah checked. September 20th, 2 days before they filed the deed. 2 days before Amanda called you. I couldn't breathe. They were researching how to make my death look accidental, I said. The words felt distant, like someone else was saying them. Angela stood abruptly. I'm calling the DA right now. This is beyond fraud. This is premeditated conspiracy to commit murder. Wednesday afternoon, the emergency TRO hearing was scheduled. Angela had worked straight through Tuesday night to compile everything: the forged deed, the insurance policy, the emails, the search history, the timeline. The judge needs to see that this isn't just a family dispute, Angela said as we walked into the courthouse. This is organized crime. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Judge Margaret Sullivan presided, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and the kind of eyes that had seen everything. Amanda and Kyle sat at separate tables, each with their own attorney. Amanda wore a navy dress, her hair pulled back, looking every inch the concerned daughter. Kyle wore a suit that didn't quite fit his hands, folded on the table in front of him. They didn't look at me. Angela presented our evidence first. The forged deed, the fake notary seal, the stolen login credentials, the life insurance policy, the timeline, the emails, the search history. Judge Sullivan listened intently, taking notes. Her expression gave nothing away. Then Kyle's attorney stood. Thomas Park, young, expensive suit, the kind of lawyer that cost money they didn't have. Your Honor, my client maintains he had no knowledge of any forged documents. Mr. Barrett believed the deed transfer was legitimate, arranged by his wife with her mother's consent. As for the insurance policy, that was a joint financial planning decision made by the married couple. There's no evidence Mr. Barrett intended any harm to Mrs. Mitchell. What about the search history? Angela asked. The carbon monoxide searches, Park didn't miss a beat. Those searches were made by Mrs. Barrett, not my client. Mr. Barrett cannot be held responsible for his wife's internet activity. Judge Sullivan looked at Kyle. Mr. Barrett, did you know about the insurance policy? Kyle stood. Yes, Your Honor, but Amanda told me it was standard estate planning. I didn't know Mrs. Mitchell hadn't consented. And the deed? Amanda handled that. She said her mother had agreed to put the property in a family trust for tax purposes. I trusted my wife. He was throwing Amanda under the bus, completely and without hesitation. Judge Sullivan turned to Amanda's attorney. Ms. Montgomery, does your client wish to make a statement? Rachel Montgomery stood, a public defender, overworked and underpaid, doing her best. Your Honor, my client. I'll speak for myself, Amanda interrupted. She stood, and for the first time since we'd entered the courtroom, she looked directly at me. Mom, she said, I made mistakes. I should have talked to you first. But I wasn't trying to steal from you. I was trying to save our family. Kyle was drowning. We were about to lose everything. I thought if I could just help us get back on our feet, we could pay you back. Eventually. Her voice cracked. Tears welled in her eyes. I never meant to hurt you. I love you. I didn't know what else to do. It was a good performance. Might have worked if I hadn't heard her voice on the phone 2 nights ago. Cold, entitled, certain that I didn't deserve the money my husband had left me. Judge Sullivan wasn't buying it either. Miss Barrett, she said. You forged your mother's signature on 2 separate legal documents. You took out a life insurance policy on her life without her knowledge or consent. You researched methods of causing accidental death. You coordinated with your husband to file fraudulent deeds and establish financial plans based on refinancing a property you had no legal claim to. She leaned forward. And you did all of this while your mother was grieving the loss of her husband of 32 years. Your father. Amanda's tears stopped, just like that, turned off like a faucet. This court grants the temporary restraining order, Judge Sullivan said. Amanda Barrett and Kyle Barrett are prohibited from contacting Donna Mitchell or coming within 500 feet of her property. A preliminary hearing will be scheduled within 10 days to address criminal charges. She looked directly at Amanda. Miss Barrett, you orchestrated fraud, forgery, and elder financial abuse. You documented your own conspiracy. The district attorney will be notified immediately. The bailiff approached. Amanda stood slowly, her face carefully blank. As she was led toward the side door, she turned and looked at me one last time. No tears now, no regret, just cold measuring assessment, like she was calculating whether I was still worth the effort. That night I sat on my cabin porch with Carol Henderson. She'd brought wine and solidarity. You did the right thing, Carol said. I wasn't so sure. Doing the right thing felt like I'd lost my daughter. But then again, maybe I'd lost her a long time ago, and I was just now admitting it. Angela says there's more coming, I said. More evidence, more charges. Carol poured me another glass of wine. Then you let the lawyers handle it. You did your part. You stood up for yourself. I looked out at the mountains. The sun was setting, painting them purple and gold. I keep thinking about when she was little, I said. She used to have these tea parties with her stuffed animals. She'd make me sit on the floor and use the tiny cups. She was so sweet. People change, Carol said gently. Or maybe they just stop pretending. We sat in silence for a while watching the stars come out. My phone buzzed. Text from Angela Sarah found something else. Can you come in tomorrow morning, 9 a.m.? I showed Carol the message. More, she said. Apparently. Do you want me to come with you? I thought about it. About walking into that office alone. About hearing whatever new betrayals Sarah had uncovered. Yes, I said. Please. Because here's what I'd learned in the past week. Family isn't just blood. Family is the people who show up. The people who sit with you in the dark. The people who believe you when you say something's wrong. Amanda was my daughter, but Carol was my family. And I was finally learning the difference. Thursday morning, 9 a.m., I walked into Angela's office with Carol by my side. Sarah Kim was already there, her laptop open, multiple windows displayed across 2 monitors. She looked tired, like she'd been up all night. Thank you for coming, Angela said. Sarah found something last night that changes everything. Sarah turned one of the monitors toward us. I was going through Amanda's cloud backup one more time looking for anything we might have missed. I found a folder buried in her archived files. It was encrypted, but not very well. She clicked open a folder labeled Voice Memos, Private. There are 17 audio files here, Sarah said. Dated between July and September. Well, you should just listen. She clicked on the first one. Dated July 18th, 2023. Amanda's voice filled the office clear and cold. Listen, Kyle, I've already handled the hard part. The insurance application is submitted. The verification call is scheduled for when she'll be at therapy. All you have to do is handle the property paperwork. Once she's settled in that isolated cabin, everything will be easier. Just be patient. She won't see what's coming. Kyle's voice nervous. Amanda, I don't know if I can keep doing this. This feels wrong. She's your mother. Amanda cutting him off sharply. You don't have a choice. You're $43,000 in debt. You're 2 months behind on your car. Your landlord is about to evict you. I'm the only thing keeping you afloat. So yes, you can. And you will. Pause. Kyle. What if she finds out? Amanda. She won't. But Kyle. Her voice dropped, became deliberate. I'm recording this call, so you understand we're in this together. If you ever try to back out or turn on me, I have this. I have your emails. I have everything. You mess this up and you go down alone. The recording ended. I sat frozen. Carol's hand found mine and squeezed. She was blackmailing him, I said. From the beginning. Sarah nodded. There are more. Let me play you another one. This is from August 3rd. She clicked play. Amanda's voice again. The timeline needs to be perfect. She closes on the cabin September 15th. We file the deed transfer on the 22nd right before we visit. That gives us a week between closing and filing. Long enough that she won't be checking the county records daily. By the time she finds out, we'll already be in possession. Kyle. And if she doesn't let us in, Amanda, she will. She always does. She's weak. She's been weak my entire life. Dad was the strong one. He built everything. She just existed. Took up space. Spent his money on her little hobbies and her grief counseling, and now this ridiculous cabin she doesn't even need. A pause. Then, but if the deed thing doesn't work, we have the insurance. The policy is active. All we need is an accident. Kyle. Amanda, I can't. Amanda, you won't have to do anything. I'll handle it. Carbon monoxide is undetectable. Happens all the time in old cabins. Faulty heater. Tragic accident. Grieving widow already devastated from losing her husband dies in her sleep 6 months later. No one would question it. The recording ended. I couldn't breathe. The room felt too small, the air too thin. She was planning to kill me, I whispered. My daughter was planning to murder me. Angela's face was grave. These recordings prove premeditation, intent, conspiracy. This isn't just fraud anymore, Donna. This is attempted murder. Carol's arm went around my shoulders. I was shaking and didn't remember when that started. Sarah played one more recording. September 10th, 5 days before I closed on the cabin. Amanda's voice speaking to someone else. A woman I didn't recognize. Amanda, I need you to do me a favor. My mother just bought a cabin in North Carolina. Old place, original heating system. I need you to check it out. Tell me if the furnace is safe. The woman, you want me to inspect it? Amanda, no. I want you to tell me how to make it malfunction. You're an HVAC tech. You know how these systems work. What would cause a carbon monoxide leak? Silence. The woman, Amanda, I'm not going to help you hurt your mother. Amanda, I'm not asking you to hurt anyone. I'm just asking for information, educational purposes. The woman, then look it up on Google. Amanda, I already did, but I need someone who knows what they're talking about. Someone who can tell me exactly what would happen, how long it would take, what it would look like. The woman, this conversation is over. The line went dead. Sarah stopped the playback. I tracked down the woman. Her name is Jessica Morton. She's an HVAC technician who went to college with Amanda. She'll testify that Amanda tried to solicit information about causing a fatal carbon monoxide leak. Angela was already on her phone. I'm calling the district attorney right now. This is first-degree attempted murder. Premeditated. Documented. She recorded her own conspiracy. Why would she record these? I asked. My voice sounded distant, like it was coming from somewhere else. Why would she keep evidence of her own crimes? Sarah shrugged. Control. Insurance. A lot of criminals document their plans because it makes them feel powerful. And she was using the recordings to control Kyle to make sure he couldn't back out without implicating himself. She's smart, Carol said quietly. But not as smart as she thought she was. Angela hung up her phone. The DA is filing charges this afternoon. First-degree attempted murder. Conspiracy to commit murder. Fraud. Forgery. Elder abuse. Kyle will likely flip on her completely. He's already throwing her under the bus, and once he hears these recordings, he'll take whatever plea deal they offer him. She looked at me. Donna, this is going to trial. A real trial. Are you ready for that? I thought about Amanda's voice on those recordings. The cold calculation. The casual cruelty. She just existed. Took up space. 58 years of my life reduced to taking up space. Yes, I said. I'm ready. The trial began on October 16th, 2023. 4 weeks after Amanda and Kyle had shown up at my cabin with their cameras and their forged deed. The Watauga County Courthouse felt different from the TRO hearing. Bigger, more final. The gallery was packed with people I didn't know. Local reporters, true crime bloggers, people who'd read about the case online and wanted to watch it unfold. I sat in the front row behind the prosecution table. Carol on one side, Angela on the other. Amanda sat at the defense table with Rachel Montgomery. She wore a cream-colored blouse and navy pants. Her hair was down, softening her face. She looked young, vulnerable, nothing like the woman I'd heard on those recordings. Kyle sat separately with his attorney, Thomas Park. He'd already taken a plea deal, 4 years in prison in exchange for full cooperation. He'd testify against Amanda. Tell them everything. Judge Sullivan called the court to order. The People versus Amanda Mitchell Barrett Tat. Charges of attempted first-degree murder conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, forgery, and elder financial abuse. The charges hung in the air, heavy and terrible. Caroline Warren stood to give the opening statement for the prosecution. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, with the kind of calm intensity that made you pay attention. The evidence will show, she began, that Amanda Barrett planned for months to steal everything her mother had. And when that plan seemed like it might fail, she planned to make sure her mother wasn't around to stop her. She walked toward the jury box. You will hear recordings of the defendant discussing how to cause a fatal carbon monoxide leak. You will see documents showing she took out a $500,000 life insurance policy on her mother without her mother's knowledge. You will see emails and timelines and search histories that prove this wasn't a moment of desperation. It was calculated, coordinated, and cold-blooded. Rachel Montgomery gave her opening statement next. She tried to paint Amanda as a desperate daughter overwhelmed by grief and financial stress, who made terrible choices but never intended real harm. My client made mistakes, Rachel said. She acted out of fear and desperation. Her husband was drowning in debt. She'd just lost her father. She wasn't thinking clearly, but making bad decisions is not the same as planning murder. It was a weak defense, and everyone in that courtroom knew it. Kyle took the stand wearing an orange jumpsuit. He'd been in custody since his plea deal. He looked smaller than I remembered. Diminished. Caroline Warren stood. Mr. Barrett, please tell the court about your financial situation in June 2023. Kyle's voice was quiet. I was in debt. $43,000 across 7 credit cards. I'd lost my job in March, same week Donna's husband died. The bank was investigating me for... It doesn't matter. I was 2 months behind on my car lease. My landlord was about to evict me. And your wife's blog income? About $4,000 a month. But it wasn't enough. We were drowning. When did you first learn about the cabin? Late August. Amanda showed me the listing. She said her mother was about to waste almost $400,000 on a cabin she didn't need. She said if we could just get the property into a trust, we could refinance it, take out enough money to pay off my debts. Did you know the plan was fraudulent? Kyle paused. I wanted to believe it was legal. Amanda said her mother would agree eventually, that we were just speeding up the process. Did you believe that? Another pause, longer this time. No, not really. Caroline held up the forged deed. Who created this document? Amanda did. She used Photoshop to replicate her mother's signature. She'd gotten samples from old tax returns and legal documents from when her father was alive. And the notary seal. Amanda found a notary whose credentials had been stolen. She used a template to create a fake seal that would pass initial inspection. Who filed the deed electronically? Kyle's voice dropped to almost a whisper. I did. Amanda gave me the login credentials. She said I had to be the one to file it because if anything went wrong, she needed plausible deniability. And the life insurance policy, Amanda took that out in June. She told me it was just protection, in case anything happened. I didn't realize what she meant until later. When did you realize? Kyle looked at Amanda for the first time. She stared back, her face blank. When she started searching how to make carbon monoxide leaks look like accidents. When she called her friend Jessica asking about furnace malfunctions. When she told me, his voice cracked, when she told me we just had to be patient, that by Christmas we'd have $500,000 and a fresh start. The courtroom was silent. Did you ask her what she meant by that? Caroline asked. Yes. What did she say? Kyle closed his eyes. She said by Christmas the insurance will have paid out. Mom will be gone, and we'll finally be free. The prosecution played all 17 voice recordings. The jury listened in silence as Amanda's voice filled the courtroom, cold and calculating, planning fraud and discussing murder like she was planning a dinner party. I watched the jurors' faces, saw the moment each of them stopped seeing Amanda as a desperate daughter and started seeing her as a predator. When the recording of Amanda trying to solicit information about carbon monoxide leaks played, one juror, a woman about my age, visibly flinched. Jessica Morton testified next. HVAC technician. College friend. Amanda called me on September 10th, Jessica said. She asked me how to make a furnace malfunction to cause a carbon monoxide leak. I refused and hung up. Then I called the police to report the conversation, but they said without more evidence of an actual plan there wasn't much they could do. Did you believe she was serious? Caroline asked. Yes. She wasn't asking hypothetically. She wanted specific information. How long it would take. What it would look like. Whether it would be detectable. She was planning something. I took the stand on Wednesday morning. My hands shook as I was sworn in, but my voice was steady. Caroline asked me to walk through the timeline. David's death in March. The insurance payout. My decision to buy the cabin. Amanda's phone call on September 22nd. What did you feel when you discovered the forged deed? Caroline asked. Betrayed, I said. Confused. I kept thinking there must be some mistake, that my daughter wouldn't do this to me. And when you learned about the life insurance policy, my voice cracked slightly. Terrified, because that meant she wasn't just trying to take my home. She was planning for me to die. Do you believe your daughter would have killed you? Rachel Montgomery objected. Speculation. Sustained, Judge Sullivan said. Caroline rephrased. Based on the evidence you've seen, the recordings, the search history, the timeline, do you believe you were in danger? I looked at Amanda. She was staring at the table, her face carefully neutral. Yes, I said. I believe if I had let them into my cabin that day, I might not have survived the winter. Rachel Montgomery had advised Amanda not to testify, but Amanda insisted. She took the stand Thursday afternoon wearing the same cream blouse, her hair pulled back, now making her look younger, more vulnerable. Rachel led her through a carefully constructed narrative. Amanda's grief over losing her father, her fear about Kyle's financial situation, her desperation to help her family. I made terrible choices, Amanda said, her voice trembling. I forged documents. I lied. I involved people who shouldn't have been involved. But I never... She looked directly at the jury, tears welling in her eyes. I never would have hurt my mother. I love her. It was a good performance. I almost believed her myself. Then Caroline Warren stood for cross-examination. Miss Barrett, Caroline said, you testified that you love your mother. Is that correct? Yes. Caroline held up a transcript. Let me read you something you said on July 18th. She just existed, took up space, spent his money on her little hobbies and her grief counseling, and now this ridiculous cabin she doesn't even need. Does that sound like love to you? Amanda's jaw tightened. I was upset. I didn't mean... What about this one August 3rd? She's weak. She's been weak my entire life. Dad was the strong one. He built everything. She just existed. Is that love? I was frustrated. September 10th. You told Jessica Morton you needed to know how to cause a carbon monoxide leak. Why? I was just asking questions. I didn't mean... You told Kyle, by Christmas the insurance will have paid out. Mom will be gone. What did you mean by gone, Miss Barrett? Amanda's composure cracked. I meant she'd be settled in the cabin, away from us, gone from our lives. But the insurance only pays out if the insured person dies. Isn't that correct? I wasn't thinking clearly. You spent 3 months planning this, Caroline said, her voice sharp now. You forged signatures. You filed fraudulent deeds. You took out a life insurance policy. You researched methods of causing accidental death. You solicited information about carbon monoxide. You told your husband you'd handle it. That's not unclear thinking, Miss Barrett. That's premeditation. Amanda's face went red. You don't understand. That money should have been mine. My father worked his entire life. Your father left that money to his wife, your mother, who was legally entitled to every penny. She didn't earn it. Amanda's voice rose, the careful vulnerability shattering. She didn't build anything. She didn't work for it. She just married him and waited for him to die. The courtroom went silent. Amanda seemed to realize what she'd said. Her hands flew to her mouth, but it was too late. No further questions, Caroline said quietly. The jury deliberated for 7 hours. I sat in the courthouse cafeteria with Carol and Angela drinking bad coffee and trying not to think about what would happen if they found her not guilty, if Amanda walked free, if I had to spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, wondering if she'd try again. At 4:47 p.m., we got the call. The jury had reached a verdict. We filed back into the courtroom. Amanda sat at the defense table, her face pale but composed. Rachel Montgomery sat beside her, looking exhausted. Judge Sullivan called the court to order. Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreperson stood. We have, Your Honor. On the charge of attempted first-degree murder, how do you find we find the defendant guilty? Amanda's face didn't change. She just stared straight ahead. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, guilty. On the charge of fraud, guilty. On the charge of forgery, guilty. On the charge of elder financial abuse, guilty, guilty on all counts. Judge Sullivan set sentencing for 2 weeks later. Amanda was remanded into custody without bail. As the bailiff led her away, Amanda turned and looked at me one last time. No tears, no regret. Just that same cold, measuring look I'd seen on my porch that first Saturday. Like she still couldn't quite believe I'd had the audacity to fight back. The courtroom was quieter this time. No reporters, no bloggers, just the people who mattered. Judge Sullivan reviewed the pre-sentence investigation report. Miss Barrett, according to your interviews with the probation officer, you continue to maintain that your mother is primarily at fault for this situation. You believe the money your father left should have been divided differently. You show no remorse for your actions, only regret that you were caught. Amanda stood, said nothing. The prosecution has recommended the maximum sentence, Judge Sullivan continued. 12 years for attempted murder to run consecutively with sentences for the other charges for a total of 15 years. 15 years. Amanda would be 47 when she got out, middle-aged, her youth gone. However, Judge Sullivan said the court has discretion in sentencing. Miss Barrett, do you have anything to say before I impose sentence? Amanda looked at Rachel, who shook her head slightly, but Amanda spoke anyway. I shouldn't be here, she said. This is all her fault. She pointed at me. She wasted my father's legacy. She took money that should have supported his family and spent it on herself, on a cabin she didn't need, on a life she didn't earn. I was trying to protect what was rightfully mine. Judge Sullivan's expression hardened. Miss Barrett, you forged legal documents. You stole your mother's identity. You took out a life insurance policy on her life and then researched methods of killing her. You involved your husband in a criminal conspiracy. You documented your plans to commit murder. And you did all of this while your mother was grieving the loss of her husband, your father. She leaned forward. You weren't protecting anything. You were stealing. And when theft didn't work fast enough, you planned murder. Amanda's face flushed red, but she said nothing. On the charges of attempted first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder, I sentence you to 12 years in state prison. On the charges of fraud, forgery, and elder financial abuse, I sentence you to an additional 3 years to run consecutively. Total sentence 15 years. You will be eligible for parole after serving 10 years. 15 years, the bailiff approached. Amanda stood slowly, her hands already behind her back for the cuffs. As she was led away, she didn't look at me, just stared straight ahead, her face blank. The door closed behind her, and she was gone. Thanksgiving morning, 2024. I stood on my cabin porch watching the sun rise over the Blue Ridge Mountains. The air was crisp and cold, smelling of pine and wood smoke. A perfect November day. Inside the oven, timer beeped. Turkey was ready. I'd spent the early morning hours preparing a meal, nothing elaborate, just roasted turkey, sweet potatoes, green beans, homemade rolls. Enough for 4 people. Carol arrived first at noon carrying a pumpkin pie and a bottle of wine. Happy Thanksgiving, she said, hugging me on the porch. Happy Thanksgiving. Angela arrived 15 minutes later with her wife Maria and a green bean casserole. You didn't have to cook all this, Angela said, surveying the spread on my dining table. I wanted to, I said, and I had. Wanted to fill this house with warmth and laughter and people who chose to be here not because they had to, but because they wanted to. We ate on the wraparound porch, bundled in blankets, watching the mountains turn gold in the afternoon light. Carol told stories about her grandchildren. Angela and Maria talked about the trip to Italy they were planning. I listened, laughed, refilled wine glasses. At 3:47 p.m., my phone rang. Caller ID Correctional Facility. The table went quiet. Everyone looked at me. I stared at the screen. 3:47 p.m., the exact time Kyle had filed the forged deed 1 year and 6 weeks ago. the moment the nightmare had begun. I picked up the phone, stared at it for a long moment, then pressed decline. Then block. Carol raised her wine glass. To freedom. To freedom, we echoed. I didn't always believe in second chances, in starting over, in the possibility that life could be good again after it had been broken. But here's what I learned in that year between Amanda's sentencing and this Thanksgiving. I learned that family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up when you're falling apart, who sit with you in courtrooms and bring you pie and remind you that you're not alone. I learned that saying no doesn't make you selfish. Setting boundaries doesn't make you cruel. Protecting yourself doesn't make you a bad mother. I learned that I wasn't invisible. I wasn't just taking up space. I had value beyond what I could give other people. I learned that grief doesn't last forever, but neither does guilt. And I refused to spend the rest of my life feeling guilty for surviving. Amanda called from prison 3 times in that first year. I never answered. She sent letters. I didn't read them. Rachel Montgomery reached out twice, suggesting restorative dialogue. I politely declined. Some people say that's cold, unforgiving, that she's still my daughter, still deserving of my love. But here's what those people don't understand. Love doesn't mean allowing someone to destroy you. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. And being someone's mother doesn't mean sacrificing your life so they can have the one they want. I sent money to Amanda's commissary account once, 3 months after sentencing. $50. Enough for basics, toiletries, stamps, snacks. Not because I owed her, not because I forgave her, but because despite everything, some small part of me still remembered the little girl who'd had tea parties with her stuffed animals. But I didn't send a letter, didn't include a note, just money appearing in her account, anonymous and conditional. That was all I had left to give her. In December, I started volunteering at a women's shelter in Boone. 2 days a week, I helped with intake paperwork and donated funds for legal services. Angela connected me with the director, a woman named Patricia, who'd escaped an abusive marriage 10 years ago and dedicated her life to helping other women do the same. Financial abuse is the hardest to prove, Patricia told me during my first shift, but it's one of the most common ways abusers maintain control. They make you believe you have no options, no resources, no way out. I thought about Amanda's voice on those recordings. She's weak. She just existed. I thought about how close I'd come to believing that about myself. How do you help them see differently? I asked. Patricia smiled. We show them the paperwork, the bank statements, the legal documents. We show them in black and white what they actually own, what they're entitled to, what belongs to them. And then we help them protect it. It felt right doing that work, helping other women see their own worth when their families had tried to make them invisible. In February, I took an art class at the community college. Watercolors, something I'd talked about doing for years but never had time for. I wasn't good at it. My mountains looked lumpy, my trees were too geometric. But the instructor, a woman in her 70s named Ruth, said that wasn't the point. Art isn't about perfection, she said. It's about expression, about putting something into the world that didn't exist before, about making your mark. I painted the view from my porch, over and over, different seasons, different times of day. I painted it in spring when the rhododendrons bloomed, in summer when thunderstorms rolled through the valley, in fall when the leaves turned gold and crimson. I gave one to Carol for Christmas, one to Angela and Maria, one to Patricia at the shelter. I kept the rest hanging them throughout the cabin, proof that I was here, that I was making something, that I existed as more than just a placeholder in someone else's story. In April, I got a letter from Kyle. It came to Angela's office. He didn't have my address, and I intended to keep it that way. Angela called to ask if I wanted to read it. What does it say? I asked. He's apologizing, says he's taking full responsibility, says he was weak and desperate and let Amanda manipulate him, says he thinks about what he did every day. Does he want something? He asks if you'd be willing to write a letter supporting his parole application in 3 years. I thought about it. About Kyle standing on my porch hand on that forged deed, looking me in the eye and claiming he had legal standing to be there. About him filing that document at 3:47 p.m., 2 hours before Amanda called me. About him being weak, yes, but also complicit, an active participant in a plan to steal my home and possibly end my life. No, I said. You sure? I'm sure. He made his choices. He can live with the consequences. Angela didn't argue, just said I'll let him know. In June, I hired a lawyer to update my will. Not Angela, she'd done enough for me. Someone new recommended by Patricia at the shelter. I left the cabin to Carol. She'd shown up when I needed someone. She'd sat with me in courtrooms and on porches. She'd chosen me when my own daughter hadn't. I left a trust fund for any future grandchildren if Amanda ever had children. If they existed and needed help, they'd have access to education funds. But not Amanda. Not directly. Never again. I left money to the women's shelter, to the community college art program, to the grief counseling center that had helped me survive those first terrible months after David died. And I left a letter to be opened only after my death explaining everything. The fraud, the recordings, the trial. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted the truth preserved. Wanted whoever came after me to know that I hadn't gone quietly, that I'd fought back, that I'd mattered. Now it's been 14 months since that September day when Amanda showed up at my cabin with cameras and forged documents. 14 months since I learned that the person I'd sacrificed everything for saw me as nothing more than an obstacle to overcome. People ask me sometimes if I'm angry, if I hate her. The truth is more complicated than that. I'm sad for the relationship we'll never have. I'm sad for the grandmother I might have been to children she might have had. I'm sad for all the Thanksgivings and Christmases and ordinary Tuesdays we won't share. But I'm not angry anymore. Anger takes energy and I need mine for living. I wake up every morning in a home I bought with money I'm entitled to. I drink coffee on a porch I chose. I spend my days doing work that matters, and painting mountains that make me happy, and sitting with people who value me for who I am, not what I can give them. I'm 59 years old. I've been a widow for 19 months. I've survived grief and betrayal and a daughter who tried to erase me. And I'm still here, still strong, still valuable, still worthy of taking up space. If you're reading this and someone in your life has made you feel invisible, if they've told you that you don't matter, that you're just in the way, that your only value is what you can provide, I want you to hear this. You are not a footnote in someone else's story. You are not a placeholder until something better comes along. You are not required to sacrifice yourself to prove your love. You built your life. You earned what you have. And no one, not your children, not your spouse, not your family, has the right to take it from you. Set your boundaries. Change your locks. Check your bank accounts. Verify your legal documents. And if you discover that someone you love has been planning to steal from you, to use you to erase you, don't feel guilty for protecting yourself. Being someone's mother doesn't mean letting them destroy you. Being someone's family doesn't mean accepting their abuse. Love is not the same as sacrifice, and protecting yourself is not the same as being selfish. The last time I saw Amanda was at her sentencing, watching the bailiff lead her away in handcuffs. I don't know if I'll ever see her again. She has 10 years before parole eligibility. By then, she'll be 42. I'll be 68. We might have a conversation then. Might sit across from each other in a prison visiting room and try to find something to say. Or we might not. Either way, I'll be okay, because I've learned that you can survive losing someone and still build a beautiful life. You can grieve what might have been while celebrating what is. You can love someone from a distance while refusing to let them hurt you. You can be a mother and still choose yourself. And you can take up all the space you need without apologizing for existing. This Thanksgiving, as the sun set over the Blue Ridge Mountains and my chosen family laughed around my table, I thought about all the things I'm grateful for. For Carol, who brought pie and friendship when I needed both. For Angela, who fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. For Sarah, who found the truth when it was buried in encrypted files. For Officer Davis, who believed me when I said something was wrong. For Patricia and Ruth and all the other women who've shown me that life after loss can be rich and full and worth living. And yes, even for Amanda, because her betrayal taught me the most important lesson of all, that I am strong enough to survive anything, even my own daughter. So here I am 1 year later, sitting on my porch in the mountains watching the stars come out over the ridge. I have a cabin that's mine, a life that's mine, a future that's mine, and I'm not giving any of it up, not for anyone, not ever again, because I'm not just surviving anymore, I'm living. And that I've learned is the best revenge of all.